Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Barnes.
And I'm Mark Langley.
This is a fairly long-winded question from Sue, so just bear with me while I just explain it. She's got a 15-year-old thoroughbred who's a very nice type, and she's finding that he's pulling back, but she's been using baling twine to tie him up. So more often than not, he snorts and pulls back. He might do this when she's saddling or doing his feet. She'll have her daughter's horse standing quietly beside him when this happens. He's also terrified of a moving hose next to him. She's had his eyes checked and there's nothing conclusive there. She's owned him for nearly 3 years, and the previous owner says he did do it a few times, but she's never come across this challenge in all of her 60 years of being around horses. She does have a feeling that he might be better with a placid rein supplement, but she did say that she has sort of gone back over to the membership videos and she has followed some of the instructions as close as she could with getting him to follow a lead rope while applying a stressor. A little plastic bag on the end of a whip in front of him. He didn't pull back at all, which she expected him to do, but he rushed around her very closely. But with each attempt, there was no pullback.
Okay, I'm going to, just at the end of that question is the crux. Okay, the crux of it all. That little bit, you did the right thing by adding a little stressor in there, because that's what's happening when he's tied up to a bit of baling twine. As he gets a little stress, then pop, he pulls. Now, what you said about the running around with the stressor is very common, okay? But first I'm going to say there's a saying that's so important and it is the best way to teach your horse to tie up is don't tie it up. Now, don't tie it up to baling twine, especially baling twine. Baling twine is just like pop, and it teaches horses to pull back. Once they've broke it once, then they get a fright from the pop, but then they know they can break through it, and then all of a sudden they can be free. Now, the horses, the flight instinct in horses is important to keep in them, and the flight instinct is sometimes just following a feel. So, so basically in the wild, horses don't scatter like mice. So when the mouse plague was on, it got me thinking about, imagine if I was walking around, because every time we go out in the paddock, like I left the raincoat out when I was unloading my float, and then I just went out to pick it up, and then there's just mice scattering everywhere. And I got to thinking about horses, and I got, imagine if horses were the size of mice, and you're walking around and there was a horse plague, and there was little horses everywhere. And then all of a sudden all the horses hid under, a sheet of tin like mice do, or something you left on the ground, and all of a sudden you pick it up. And I got me thinking, well, I reckon all the horses would all go off in the one direction, because the mice scattered, but the one thing horses don't do in a mob is scatter. Same with cattle, unless you get one run rogue leader or anything like that run off, the majority follow a feel of the strongest decision maker. Same with horses. And then you get a random one that runs off, but usually in most cases a flight instinct in a herd situation is that most of the horses follow a feel of the strongest decision maker. Okay, so the flight instinct is basically part of the search instinct in a horse. People like to talk about the flight instinct and go, oh no, I don't want that, I just want curiosity, and I want this and I want that. And so, well, hang on, the flight instinct is a horse seeking a little safety in a human environment which imposes all these scary things on them, that they have to be able to think through situations. So that's why we use a stressor in training, not to get the horse to run away from the stress, it's to get the horse to search, to follow a feel, because that's what a horse would do in a normal wild environment. Flight instinct is following a feel in most cases. They're not like mice that scatter off in all different directions, then maybe regroup later. So the problem is by the sounds of it, when you were waving the flag, so you're just waving the flag a little bit to get the horse to go, oh geez, I feel a little unsafe. So you're actually provoking a bit of a pullback there, but because you're standing in front of your horse and you've probably got your flag somewhere here, your horse has probably been lunged before. So what happens, you put a stimulant out here like a stick or waving rope or a flag somewhere here, and the horse goes, oh, you're standing in front of me, I know how to release this pressure, I'm going to run around forward. Now, horses that don't know how to lead properly and horses that pull back will actually avoid lead rope pressure. And the way they avoid it is by escaping forward. So your horse is actually, it's learned how to pull back, yes, when it's tied up, because its nose is hard or tied to something that breaks. So it will actually pop that pressure and run off. It doesn't like doing it. It hates it. It thinks it's really scary doing it. But when you're on the end of a lead with it, it will do everything it can to pull on that rope to avoid it. So it will actually avoid any lead rope pressure by running forward. And because it's probably been put in a lunging situation before, it sees a stimulant, sees someone in front of it and thinks, I know, I'm going to go around. Because just about every horse I have at a clinic somewhere in their life's been sent around in a circle by someone away from energy. So it's common that your horse is going to want to run around you both either direction, depending on what hand the flag's in and what hand's the rope in and things like that. So to break that situation is I would go into a lot of close contact leading. So I'd get right up underneath the chin on the halter knot, and before I even put a stimulant on the horse, I'd push your horse backwards from the nose and then come forwards to the pole pressure. The horse cannot escape it. You have to be close. You have to stand away a little, because your horse, when you pull pole pressure on it, after it's been going backwards, you quickly say forward a step. A little slow to start in the first 5 to 10 times. But then you've got to put a bit of urgency on it at some stage, so the horse knows it's urgent to come forward. But because you're really close on that lead rope, the horses can't avoid it by running away, because you've got full control. It's almost like giving someone a hug until they soften in that hug and saying, oh, it's only when they were fighting the hug that they felt the boundaries of the hug, but when they softened inside that hug, the hug wasn't constricting them. It was only when they were pushing against the boundaries of the hug. So you're sort of not quite a hug with that holder lead, but close to it, that you can hug the pole a little and come forward. And then when the horse takes a rushy step forward, you put pressure back and say, no, don't rush forward. You're inside the hug of the lead rope, of the halter. And this is without any stimulant, because if you add too much stimulant and you're still learning this as well, plus the horse, you could end up, hurting yourself because you're so close to your horse. So get a lot of head hug, rocking backwards and forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, until your horse is getting really loose and happy to follow the hug of that of your hand right under the chin there. When you can feel your horse loosen through its whole body and just start to loosen, so when the pole pressure comes on, you see the whole nervous system and muscle system kind of loosen, and the horse just pushes and steps forward, and you'll see the tension start to come out of your horse, and you do a lot of that. When that's established, then you get the flag, and you might have it just close, and you just might quickly bang it on your leg as you're saying step forward, and that'll put a shock through your horse, and it'll push it up against the pole pressure. But because it's found the answer quite a lot of times under pressure, then that the stressor or the thing which is the flag will say you're under pressure now, the horse will go, oh, and then it'll just release and come forward, and then you go, that's the answer. So you're still quite close with that, until basically the only answer under pressure is to follow the feel, whether that be backwards or forwards. And then when you've got that established, that'll help a lot with that pullback. And the next stage of fixing pullbacks, like if you really want to get serious about it, you start to yield the horse's front end across from the knot and the hindquarter around from the knot. Now the hindquarter is a bit of a tricky one. It's a bit like dancing. You've got to put a roll in your hand and get your horse to soften through its body and move its hindquarter over, because it's thinking softly into your hand. But once you establish really good leading like that, then basically that horse can get out of any bind, wherever the rope goes, the horse goes, and it's comfortable with that rope, not frightened of it. So I think it's avoiding rope pressure when you teach it. It's learned to pull back, so it does suddenly, it's like a horse that avoids the ramp to get inside the float. We think it's loading really well, but when we look at it in slow motion, the horse avoided the ramp. And if you try, and I've had horses that if I let them load, they would have loaded in 3 seconds flat, bang, straight in, and the owner goes, but I've got a problem with my horse running outside the horse float. It runs backwards when I unload it. And then they see me stop the horse and not let it go in, and they're like, oh God. And then all of a sudden the lesson takes an hour and a half to get the horse on. why did that lesson take an hour and a half to get the horse on the float? Is because I said, don't avoid that ramp, and the horse goes, oh, crikey, I can't avoid the ramp, so what am I going to do? I'm not going to load then. I'm going to boycott the whole thing. So that's the same thing as the horse breaking that twine. It's like, I just have to break the twine and I'll be free. But if you really put pressure on its head properly, and it has to commit to that pressure, it actually will try and avoid it at any cost. So once you go back to that leading, you'll get a good response with your horse. And then you add the stressor, and then because you've got the close contact leading, the horse hasn't got that opportunity, because it doesn't feel like you're out there on a long rope and it can just run around you to avoid pressure. Then you might go up to a rail and teach it to put your lead rope over a rail and walk in another direction while the horse leads up to the rail until it can just about touch the rail with its chin. And then once you've got really good leading established, then you might put a wrap around a rail, so you've got to get a certain amount of friction. It's hard to say the right amount of friction. Not enough friction. Some horses will just walk backwards until the long rope is just released off the rail. So some people use tie blockers. They're like a figure of eight thing. And I think you go to abseiling shops and you get a figure of eight thing for your abseiling. Those figure of eight carabiners. They're not a carabiner, but they've just got two rings, a smaller one and a bigger one. Or you can actually put a rope around one of those and tie it to a rail, and then that'll just slip with a certain amount of slippage until the horse, pulls for 10 metres. If it's a 10-metre rope, they've got to go a long way. And a lot of them will quit by then. So instead of having that pop feeling, they've actually got to pull the rope gently and keep pushing it and pushing backwards to release it. So if you really want to, you're not confident yet with hard tying it, then you get your horse to lead up to a rail, and then you put enough wraps in the rail that creates enough friction that the horse actually has to have a bit of a tug of war to push it back. Not enough to panic and they're hard tied, but you'll find that by the time that you've done that, then you'll get to the stage that you can hard time. But with a good a figure of eight tie blocker, or a good wrap around a rail, you maybe won't have to hard tie your horse.
So go back to those leading lessons, Sue. There's an awful lot of videos on leading on the membership, and a whole section of them dedicated to it. It's such a big area. And when you're doing it, what you're looking for is, where is your horse going wrong? What's it not understanding? How can you improve it? Not looking at what it can do, what can't it do? And you've got to look at the little tiny things, the little tiny braces. And just one more comment, and when Mark was talking about going backwards and forwards, that really close in-hand work, I've seen him do it, and it's really like the horse is rocking. It's like a rocking movement. There's not a lot of movement with the feet. So it's small, but you're looking for how soft it can go this way and then this way. And, that change of direction. And then, when he does it right, you'll see his shoulders relax and his body relax, and it'll take a little bit, but stick with it, because like that sounds like Mark's hit the nail on the head there. That's the source of his pullbacks. Just quickly too, one thing I forgot, there's a lot of horses with a lot of brace. The horses that stand rigid and stiff, like frozen, are ready to pop at any time, and that close leading helps with that. The other thing is, when you're doing the backwards to forwards, don't just push your rope back towards their chest like a lot of people do when they're leading. When you do the backwards, put a lift up in your horse. So if the horse gets real bracy in the back up, instead of going towards the chest, and you just put a lift up into the air, and the horse will lift, and then it'll release the brace, and then just let it back up a little. Sometimes it's like a rugby scrum when you pull the rein down, try to lower their head. Doesn't always work, especially when they're really braced in the base of the neck and they get really stuck. So it's, but you've got to be careful with it. And the other thing is, when people do horsemanship, that, I remember this is, how you were taught at Pony Club, you shouldn't hold your horse under the chin, you should just hold it on a long rope. People got frightened of holding their horse under the chin. Now, you educate a horse under the chin if you need to, so you can lead it on a long rope or a short rope, wouldn't matter which one you wanted to lead it on. You don't just avoid one thing, because trying to control a horse under the chin is futile if you haven't educated it. But a lot of that under the chin work is very good at getting a horse to get really soft. Great question. Thank you very much, Sue, and good luck with that one. And the next question is from Shannon. Shannon is a new member. Hi, Shannon, and thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the membership. Shannon's question is, how can she get some help with the challenges or the videos or anything that she's finding working with you, if she doesn't have anyone to help her and she's working horses alone. So Shannon, I'm just going to pop in here, and Mark will probably add to it as well. But so the membership is really set up with a whole load of videos. There's not a lot of structure to it, and sometimes it can be sort of a bit overwhelming. That's why we did the challenge. So start off at the beginning of the challenge, because it introduces you to so much of Mark's philosophy and concepts. So as you may have gathered from the previous question, Mark is all about thinking horsemanship. So there's a lot to unraveling different areas, and sometimes you've got to get your head around the psychology of where he's coming from. The challenge is going to help you come on board with that. Any questions that you have, we are definitely here to support you as much as we can. Mark is incredibly limited with time because he's teaching so much, and when he teaches, he'll teach for sort of 11-hour days, so he doesn't have a lot of time in the evenings. But the Q&As that we do, and we do them as often as we can, so at the moment they're every fortnight, they will sort of pop up more if we can. Any questions that you have, pop them on the Q&A and Mark will give you a direct answer. The other avenue that you have to tap into Mark is sending him a video of what you're doing. It can be anything, and you can just say, how am I going with this? Am I doing it right? Or it doesn't have to be based around a problem. Mark will have a look at it and he'll just give you a quick commentary saying, this is good, this is exactly what I want you to be doing, or when I would maybe look at what your horse is doing here, this is how I may do something. So those the commentary that he can offer when he actually sees footage is far more specific and may also really help you. And the membership on Facebook, the Facebook group, so Mark Langley online horsemanship membership group, which is the one where you've just put the question in, that's for everyone to just chip in and support each other. So if anything's happening, if you're delighted about things or you're not quite sure, there's no harm in you just popping something on that group and just seeing everyone's response, and Mark does chip in with that one as well. So enjoy the membership. I hope you get a lot out of it, and I hope you can sort of navigate your way through.
The other one is the followers page. I think that was a group that's set up more for just people to talk amongst themselves, and they're interested in my teachings and they've got ideas, and and sometimes you might try something in the challenge and someone else will chip in and say, well, I tried that and I tried and so it is quite supportive. And as Jenny said, the best thing sometimes is send a video through or ask on the question and answers, because what we do is we're sort of doing the question and answers every fortnight, so every time a little thing comes up. But I guess the idea with what I'm trying to teach is it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how you do it, and this is the way you do it, and you have to look like this when you do it. I want people to look at all the videos and figure out if there's things in there that are going to suit them for their horses, and that's in all of the subscription videos. The challenge is reasonably specific, but it's more so to create an awareness and try a couple of things. And Jenny's just given you all the ideas that if you are lost and you're just not sure if you're doing it right, how to sort of find an answer. But really, I want you to be creative. I want you to go out and look at things. And I was teaching horsemanship, I guess clinics I've been doing for over 10 years, and I do clinics for clubs and people who've done a lot of horsemanship, and they'd come to me and I'd say, oh, have you seen this and this with your horse? Oh no, I haven't really noticed that. Or no, I have noticed it, but I didn't have an alternative. And I think some people were doing a lot of stuff with their horses that didn't feel right, because they'd come to me and say, it never felt right what I was doing, but I didn't have an alternative. So what I want you to do is you know your horse, and you go out, and there might be a lesson that will suit you and your horse, and you can try that, and you know where your horse is at, and some lessons you're not going to try. And yes, if you need any support, if you're not sure, that's where you come in and ask questions, send videos, all that sort of thing. But it's not a program by any means. It's not a program. It's just, these are my ideas to help you guys create your own good ideas using some of what's helped me help horses and address the anxiety in horses and help them feel better. So, but thanks for that, and for everybody else too. I can't deal with thousands of videos getting sent through, but it is a service where if you send a video through, I audit it, talk over it, however it works, and post it back on the membership. You've just got to, it's a free service. You've just got to be able to be, you just got to, be okay with you and your horse or whatever you've videoed being on the membership for the other members to see. So that is available, and it's a free service when you're a member. So you can make use of it, and it's a very constructive way, because everybody else can look and say, oh, I was thinking that, or I was doing that with my horse too, and so it's always good to do that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Shannon.
You can learn more from Mark online through his online training videos. Just search Mark Langley Horsemanship. There's over 380 training videos which everyone has access to with a 7-day free trial. If you like what you see, it's just $15 a month from there. That's help where you need it.